Happy Thursday, everybody. Glad you could join me for this 8th episode of the Southern Conservative Podcast. My name is Ty. This will be the final podcast for this week. The next podcast will be on Monday. Now, before we get into all of this, folks, I want to briefly touch on statements that the president made today concerning immigration and DACA policy. Apparently, he has in his head now that he wants to grant citizenship to about 1.8 million illegal immigrants. It would include the DACA recipients plus some other people as well. This plan would be phased in over time, over a 10 to 12 year period, in exchange for a border wall. And there's also some other talks about, fixing visas and the immigration lottery program. Ted Cruz has come out saying that he's absolutely opposed to this, that we can't give citizenship to any illegal immigrants. I'm of the view of Ted Cruz. I don't believe that we should be giving citizenship to illegal immigrants. If they want citizenship, they need to go through the process the legal way, just like everybody else does. They need to pay the fees. They need to wait the years. They need to follow the process that we already have in place as everybody else that's trying to come into this country legally. Doing otherwise completely undermines the legal immigration process that we have in this country. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that, folks. I've already made other comments in previous podcasts over my views of immigration and DACA policy, but we have way too much to get into today. It's probably going to take up the whole half hour. We might even go over a half hour today. And certainly, there's going to be more conversations involved in the coming days and weeks concerning DACA and immigration policy, so look forward to that. But I want to pick up where we left off yesterday. If you didn't get a chance to hear Wednesday's podcast, please do so before listening to this one. It's very brief. It's only about 10 minutes long. There have been several bombshell revelations in the latest batch of text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page that have been released to the public. Some of these text messages have to deal with a previous investigation in which Peter Strzok was involved, and that was the Hillary Clinton email investigation and her mishandling of classified information. Recall that Strzok was responsible in large part for changing the language of James Comey's report in early spring 2016, months before Hillary or other key witnesses were interviewed. Part of the language changed was that Hillary acted with extreme carelessness in her handling of classified information instead of the original wording of grossly negligent, which is the language in the statute on the handling of classified information. It's clear that the fix was in to let Hillary off the hook. Doing otherwise would have thrown a huge wrench in the presidential race in 2016, with the Democrats left scrambling to find a new candidate. After learning that Donald Trump was going to be the Republican nominee, Strzok texted Lisa Page, "I saw Trump won, figured it would be a bit. Now the pressure really starts to finish MYE." MYE stands for mid-year exam and was the FBI code name for the Hillary Clinton email case. As further proof that the fix was in, a text message from Lisa Page was sent to Peter Strzok concerning Attorney General Loretta Lynch's announcement on June 30th, 2016, 2 days before Hillary Clinton was interviewed and 5 days before James Comey made his infamous public address, stating that she would accept the recommendations made by James Comey. The message reads, "And yeah, it's a real profile in courage since she knows no charges will be brought." Of course, Strzok knew no charges would be brought months before the investigation concluded because he helped rewrite the exoneration statement. And Loretta Lynch apparently also knew Hillary would be let off the hook. That investigation, folks, was a total sham. Now, before we had Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation, the FBI was conducting their own investigation into Trump-Russia collusion. Strzok, who was head of the FBI's counterintelligence division, was a key player in that investigation. You'll recall the text message he sent to Lisa Page, who served as counsel to the FBI. "I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. It's believed that Andy is Andrew McCabe, the deputy director of the FBI. The insurance policy most likely involves the FBI using the salacious dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC to obtain a FISA warrant to spy on Trump, his campaign, and his transition team. I've already discussed the many connections between the DOJ, FBI, Fusion GPS, and Christopher Steele. Clearly, there was a well-organized and coordinated effort by top intelligence officials to make sure Trump was not elected president, and if he was, to bring down his presidency using a phony dossier. Well, Strzok gets an offer to become part of Robert Mueller's special counsel team, and he sends this text message to Lisa Page. "You and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there's no there there." So Strzok knows there's no there there in the Trump-Russia collusion case. And of course, he would know because he was part of the FBI's investigation before Mueller's investigation even began. But he joins the investigation anyway. In another text message, he commented to Lisa Page about the investigation, saying the case, quote, "will be in the history books, maybe the most important case of our lives." About 20 minutes after that message, he tells Lisa Page, quote, "For me, in this case, I personally have a sense of unfinished business. I unleashed it with NYE. Now I need to fix it and finish it." One could conclude he's talking about how he got Hillary off the hook because he wants to see her elected instead of Trump. Remember, Page and Strzok despise Donald Trump. He helped to get Hillary off the hook and make her still a viable candidate, but when she failed to win the election in 2016, he wanted to join the case so he could help take down Trump's presidency as a way of redeeming himself and Hillary Clinton. Strzok seems to be only concerned about his career within the FBI. But what's even more telling is later on in the conversation with Lisa Page, Peter Strzok writes, quote, "Who gives a F, one more AD-like, and the name's redacted, or whoever, an investigation leading to impeachment?" It seems that Strzok knows there's no there and that the investigation was created solely to lead to the impeachment of President Donald Trump. Senator Ron Johnson, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, revealed information about text messages indicating the FBI having this secret society that apparently meets off-site of the Department of Justice. There's not much information that's come to light so far on this at this time, but when it does, we'll discuss it. Maybe information that is contained in the classified memo that the House has will address this. And speaking of the classified memo, it's been reported that the House Intelligence Committee will vote on declassifying the memo created based on documents it received from the Justice Department. President Trump has indicated that he will sign off on releasing the memo to the public. The committee voted along party lines, with the majority being Republicans, to allow access to this memo by all House members. So far, about 200 Republicans and only a handful of Democrats outside the committee have viewed the document. Several Republicans have come forward saying they were shocked by what they learned. The memo supposedly contains information about extensive FISA abuse by top members of the FBI and DOJ. Now, just as a side note that's worth mentioning, recall that Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, tried to stop the House from obtaining the documents it wanted in relation to how the DOJ and FBI was conducting business in regards to FISA warrants. When Rosenstein was threatened with contempt of Congress, he handed over the materials. So why the pushback? You should know that, according to the FISA statute, the warrant needs to be re-upped every 90 days. And there's only a handful of people who have the authority to do that. Rosenstein would have been one of only a few people who would be in the position to do so. It's possible that he signed off on the warrant to continue looking into Donald Trump and his close associates. It means that Rosenstein could possibly be implicated for possible FISA abuse, especially in light that the salacious dossier was used in part to obtain the warrant in the first place. Now, before we go further, I want to remind everyone to check out my Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/southernconservative. That's facebook.com/southernconservative. There you'll find links to articles from different conservative outlets on news stories you probably won't hear about in the mainstream media. Plus, we have links to podcasts that are posted daily shortly after they're uploaded to this YouTube channel. And speaking of YouTube, please click on the subscribe button and subscribe to this channel. You'll be notified each time a podcast is posted. Remember, podcasts are posted daily, Monday through Thursday. And as a quick reminder, there will be no podcast on Wednesday, February 7th. Well, the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz informed lawmakers Thursday that he has found the missing 5 months of text messages between senior FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page that the DOJ said were lost due to a technical glitch. In a letter to Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee Chairman Ron Johnson and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, Horowitz wrote, "The Office of the Inspector General has been investigating this matter and, this week, succeeded in using forensic tools to recover text messages from FBI devices, including text messages between Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page that were sent or received between December 14th, 2016 and May 17th, 2017. That time period covered a number of significant developments in the FBI's investigation of the Trump-Russia allegations, and that led up to the special counsel, which was convened on May 17th, 2017. Now, some of those events include Peter Strzok's interview of Michael Flynn shortly after Trump was inaugurated president, the appointments of Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein to head the DOJ, Jeff Sessions' recusal from the Russian investigation, and James Comey's reassurance to Donald Trump that he was not under investigation. The DOJ last Friday informed lawmakers that it had lost text messages between Strzok and Page during that time due to a technical glitch, and unnamed federal law enforcement officials told Fox News that those glitches had affected nearly 10% of the FBI's 35,000 employees. Now, folks, if we're to believe this, then that represents gross negligence on the part of the FBI. If there was a technical glitch, wouldn't you want to resolve that immediately? To let it go on for 5 months is totally unacceptable. And many in the FBI were saying that blaming the lost text messages on a glitch was a bunch of BS and that the text messages would be able to be retrieved somehow. Horowitz said that the effort to recover any additional text messages is still ongoing. The DOJ Inspector General first discovered the text messages while investigating whether political bias among senior levels of the FBI impacted the Clinton email investigation or the Trump-Russia investigation. He turned over the text messages to the DOJ, who informed Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Page had left the team by then, but Mueller removed Strzok over the text messages. So now we'll have to wait and see what happens with all of these lost text messages and see if there's anything good in those text messages. But to think that Strzok and Page had texted each other to the tune of sending and receiving 50,000 messages, how in the hell did they have time to do their jobs, get any work done, let alone try and go after President Trump? Well, folks, I want to talk now about former President Barack Obama and a man by the name of Louis Farrakhan. Now, who's Louis Farrakhan? Rumors of an association between Obama and Farrakhan circulated during the 2008 presidential campaign in the wake of revelations about Obama's decades-long membership in the Trinity United Church of Christ, led by the racist preacher Jeremiah Wright. Well, what you're seeing on the screen now, folks, is a picture taken in 2005 of Barack Obama and Louis Farrakhan. In 2005, 3 years before Obama was elected president, he was serving as a United States Senator from Illinois. During the presidential race in 2008, there were accusations of Obama having a close association with Farrakhan, but there was no solid proof of this. Well, this picture that was taken is proof that Obama at least posed with a picture of Farrakhan, even though Obama stated that he flatly rejected the anti-Semitic views of Farrakhan and the support of Farrakhan in general. Well, this picture, folks, never came to light during the race in 2008. In fact, it never came to light at all the entire time Barack Obama was president. It has only recently been released, and the photographer tells us exactly why he never released the photo. See, here's the article according to Breitbart News. A photograph of then-Senator Barack Obama of Illinois and the Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan that was taken in 2005 at a meeting of the Congressional Black Caucus in Washington, D.C., was released on Saturday after a 13-year cover-up to protect Obama's political career. Journalist Askia Muhammad told TriceEdneyWire.com that he took the photograph after Obama had engaged in a warm conversation with constituent and fellow Chicagoan minister Louis Farrakhan. However, he realized that the photograph could endanger Obama's presidential ambitions, which were already being widely discussed. Those rumors could not be substantiated, however, and the story of Muhammad's long-hidden photograph explains why. Askia told TriceEdneyWire.com that he was confronted by a member of the Congressional Black Caucus about the photograph, and that he eventually surrendered it to Farrakhan's chief of staff. He secretly kept a copy of the image for himself, but he never told anyone, and never released the image for fear of burglary or retaliation against him, he told the left-wing Talking Points Memo website. He told TriceEdneyWire.com that he believed the photograph could have destroyed Obama's electoral chances. Quote, "I gave the picture up at the time and basically swore secrecy," Muhammad said in an executive interview with the Trice Edney Newswire this week. But after the nomination was secured and all the way up until the inauguration, then for 8 years after he was president, it was kept undercover. As for any debate that the photo could have made a difference in the outcome of the Obama presidential election, Muhammad is emphatic, saying, quote, "I insist it absolutely would have made a difference." Farrakhan, born Louis Eugene Walcott, has led the Nation of Islam since 1981. NOI is a cultish new religious movement founded in the 1930s by Wallace Fard Muhammad, a man who claimed to be the Messiah cometh as well as the Mahdi of Islam. NOI's primary beliefs, hammered out under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the 1940s and 1950s, include that white people are inherently devils who exist because a black scientist named Jacob grafted them into existence on an island in the 5th millennium BC. White devils were, according to the NOI, bred to be evil for hundreds of years by Jacob, and eventually learned to use technology to enslave blacks. Farrakhan and the NOI also have a long history of anti-Semitism. Farrakhan has, for example, spoken highly of Hitler's abilities as a leader and repeatedly indulged in sermons on Jewish control of various industries. He also infamously referred to Judaism as a gutter religion. The photograph also includes Minister Farrakhan's son-in-law, Leonard Farrakhan Muhammad, his son and security chief, Mustafa Farrakhan, Minister Farrakhan's son, Joshua Farrakhan, and the Reverend Willie Wilson. Muhammad told Talking Points Memo that he felt more at ease about the photograph after Farrakhan publicly revealed in 2016 that he had met with then-Senator Obama and he obtained Farrakhan's permission to publish the photograph as he was preparing a memoir last year. The late NBC journalist Tim Russert asked then-candidate Obama at a 2008 debate in Cleveland, Ohio, whether he accepted Farrakhan's public support. Obama responded by claiming he had denounced Farrakhan and had consistently distanced himself from him. Obama said at the time, "You know, I have been very clear in my denunciation of Minister Farrakhan's anti-Semitic comments. I think that they are unacceptable and reprehensible. I did not solicit his support. He expressed pride in an African American who seems to be bringing the country together. I obviously can't censor him, but it is not support that I sought. And we're not doing anything, I assure you, formally or informally with Minister Farrakhan. I live in Chicago, he lives in Chicago. I've been very clear in terms of me believing that what he said is reprehensible and inappropriate, and I have consistently distanced myself from him." Obama did not explicitly reject Farrakhan's support. There are other similar instances in which Obama claimed to have no association with radicals and was later discovered to have lied. For example, Obama claimed during the 2008 campaign that he had no continuing links with former Weather Underground terrorist Bill Ayers, with whom Obama had served on a board in the 1990s. Breitbart News discovered that then-Senator Obama had attended a barbecue at Ayers' home in Chicago in July 2005. The Muhammad photograph proves that there was a rich mine of information that was withheld from the public to protect Obama's career and policy goals. And you wonder just how passionate Barack Obama was at rejecting anti-Semitic views, considering how he had operatives that meddled in the Israeli parliamentary election in 2015. His UN ambassador Samantha Power had failed to vote against a resolution calling for Israel to abandon its settlements in the West Bank, territory that it rightly won back in 1967, despite the international community declaring the West Bank not to be Israeli territory. Obama gave $150 billion to Iran, and through John Kerry negotiated a terrible nuclear deal with that country that often calls for the death and destruction of Israel. Needless to say, Israel has a much bigger friend and ally in President Trump than it ever had, or ever will have, in Barack Obama. Now, speaking of that, and quickly before we end this podcast, Trump is in Davos, Switzerland, at a global summit with different world leaders. One of the things he touted earlier today was the world reinvesting in America. The president told CNBC, "When I decided to come to Davos, I didn't think in terms of elitist or globalist. I thought in terms of lots of people that want to invest lots of money, and they're all coming back to the United States. They're coming back to America." Now, I think a lot of people misconstrue the term globalism or globalist. Globalism is this idea of rejecting nation-state sovereignty. It's what Britain did with Brexit over concerns of Muslim migration to the UK. They rejected globalism. They wanted to preserve their sovereignty. The European Union is much more than just an economic bloc. Each country can no longer vote on certain matters that impacts their own country. They have to leave it up to EU officials. That's globalism. Immigration is one of those things. When it comes to the United States, we're a player in a global economy. We need to do what we can to make us a more competitive player in the global marketplace. Trump touting that he wants the world to reinvest in America, thanks to our lower corporate tax rate, is called competition. It's called capitalism. And yes, it's part of the America First policy. Of course, you would expect Trump to want to encourage other countries to invest in America, and he did a great job of that earlier today in Switzerland. But he also met with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. This according to Fox Business. His meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a close ally, was their first since the president announced earlier this month that he would recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. embassy there. The declaration delighted Netanyahu and outraged the Palestinians, who declared a new U.S.-led peace push dead and refused to meet with Vice President Mike Pence during his recent trip visit to the Mideast. Trump took that as an affront, saying, quote, "They disrespected us a week ago by not allowing our great vice president to see them, and we gave them hundreds of millions of dollars in aid and support. That money is not going to them unless they sit down and negotiate peace." Netanyahu was effusive in his praise for Trump, saying the president's recent announcement on Jerusalem was a, quote, "historic decision that will be forever etched in the hearts of our people." The Palestinians, in turn, said Trump's language of dictation is unacceptable. Past American presidents have expressed irritation with the Palestinian leadership, but no previous administration has threatened to cut off assistance to the Palestinians unless they agreed to negotiate with Israel. Washington has contributed over $5 billion in economic and security aid to the Palestinians since the mid-1990s. Annual economic aid since 2008 has averaged around $400 million, much of it devoted to development projects. State Department spokeswoman Heather Nauert also said bilateral assistance to the Palestinians, including economic security aid, is at risk if the Palestinians don't come to the negotiating table. Trump, who has called an agreement to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict the, quote, ultimate deal, said Thursday that he has taken Jerusalem, one of the thorniest issues, off the table, although U.S. officials have stressed repeatedly that the decision has no impact on negotiations over the borders or sovereignty of the Holy City. Trump told Netanyahu that Israel had won on the matter, but would have to make concessions to the Palestinians in any eventual talks. Now, in my mind, folks, as long as the Palestinians still threaten Israel every day with missiles, right? You've got Hamas, Hezbollah, the Fatah constantly threatening Israel. It doesn't matter if there's a two-state solution or not. And really, there's no point in creating two separate states, a separate state of Israel and a state of Palestine. Because as long as the Palestinians won't recognize the sovereign state of Israel and won't recognize the security of the Israeli people, then what the hell's the point? Because if the Palestinians don't want peace, it doesn't matter if there's one state or if there's two states. And so until the Palestinians can prove that they're able and willing to peacefully live next door or among the Israelis, then moving forward with talks is completely pointless. But at any rate, folks, that concludes today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to being back with you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.